for June the 2nd, 2021. May I have a motion to approve this agenda, please? Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor?
Yes.
Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none, could we have the singing of our national anthem, please?
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to David Nairn, Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville, for that rendition of our national anthem. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. All right, so we're on to the meat of this particular meeting, and what has happened for the public's knowledge is the Solicitor General of Ontario has reached out to councils all over Ontario that are under OPP policing to request their thoughts about how OPP detachment police service boards should be constituted in their jurisdictions. And so the Town Council of Orangeville is now going to discuss that and hopefully formulate a letter back to the Solicitor General to be received by June 7th. So that's just the preamble of what we're talking about today. So if we move along to item 7 here, presentations. So in the agenda package, there's notes from myself about this particular issue. You know, I believe historically that the taxpayer, the voter, decides to appoint elected members to council for their complete understanding of all departments. And in the case of municipal governance, the police falls under our jurisdiction here. And, you know, I'm just questioning the historical decision to have a third-party oversight body over policing. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of council. My own personal opinion is that the 7 members of council are fully capable of making decisions on policing. And so, therefore, it's my opinion that in the case of an OPP detachment, that the detachment commander can appear before us on a quarterly basis, giving a report, and that the members of council are quite capable of dealing with issues as they come up on policing matters. Again, my opinion only, and I would like to welcome all members of council to make comment and discuss the historical police service board situation and what they would think would be a good decision going forward. Just let me add another layer of information here. There's been joint meetings of Dufferin County OPP police service boards. Out of that meeting, the consensus was to suggest 2 rural police service boards, one serving Mono, Melancthon, and Mulmer, and another one serving Grand Valley, East Garifraxa, and Amaranth, and then a singular joint Urban Police Service Board to serve Orangeville and Shelburne. And that was passed in a motion at that meeting. Again, that's the Police Service Board joint meeting. Many elected officials are members of police service boards, and so there was some municipal council content in that decision. So there's been other councils that have made suggestions, and again in the correspondence here, the agenda package, the town of Grand Valley, the town of Melancton, Mono, and Mulmer have all weighed in, and those are in our package. But I really, this is about Orangeville, this is about our council and what we want to decide upon. So I want to turn things over, and I think it's appropriate that the chair of the Police Service Board speaks first. So Councillor Taylor, over to you, sir, and your thoughts.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess to me, I have provided my thoughts via the Police Services Board, and I didn't speak as Todd Taylor per se. I spoke as a member of a 5-person board. My views do align to that board and the letter that was provided. I do want to give a little bit of background to the letter. There was some questions in particular from Councillor Sherwood on how that letter came to be. And the background on that letter is basically Mayor Brown had sent me a personal note just to me as chair of the Police Services Board, and had asked that the Police Services Board provide perspective. I had said that we would do that, and it was certainly within his rights as the head of council to ask us to do that. Timing did not permit to wait till the next meeting to do that. We had a special meeting of the Police Services Board, of which the determination was made to have that meeting enclosed. That letter and the thoughts of the Police Services Board will be brought forward to open at our next scheduled meeting, and I provided the documentation as to why we chose to do that in a letter to council. So hopefully that kind of clears things up, and I guess from my point of view, I think it's a healthy thing that the mayor would reach out to the Police Services Board and ask them to do something, which we did. And then the last piece that I'd like to say, and it's kind of on a personal note, I felt it was very, very important with this, that the Police Services Board write a letter to the Solicitor General, which we have done. We have not sent that letter, and the Solicitor General has not laid her eyes on it from us. And why that is I felt that I'm on 2 separate teams, right? I'm on the Police Services Board, and I'm also a member of this council. And I thought that it was important that council see what our response was prior to sharing that on such a large issue. So my 2 teams hopefully would be aligned. If we were going to have differing opinions here today, I think that's completely fine. But I wouldn't go tell mom and dad before I spoke to my brothers and sisters about what the issue was within the family, as for a silly little recommendation. Anyway, I think, and it goes back to the personal side of where I stand, is it goes back to the vote of when we went OPP versus OPS. And one of my concerns was autonomy. I do think that if you look at the rest of Dufferin County, you could certainly draw a correlation to Shelburne. But even Shelburne, with all respect to that wonderful town, is quite different than Orangeville. I think it's really important that we maintain our voice. And whether moving forward, I'm still on the Police Services Board and maintain that voice, it doesn't matter. I think whomever sits on this council should have a voice that's independent and speaking for Orangeville, because our issues are quite different. And then as an extension to that, outside of Shelburne, we just don't have anything in common other than the fact that we're in a county. You know, Mulmer has completely different issues than what Orangeville would have. And if it wasn't, you know, just as an example, if it was a Grand Valley, Mulmer, Orangeville coalition, those other 2 areas would be overshadowed by the issues of Orangeville. It's just quite different, rural versus urban. So my take would be, at the very least, and if there was a compromise here, I think that we should be autonomous. We should remain the Orangeville Police Services Board. with whomever is on it. So I think that's a different topic altogether. You know, and just ensure that our views are met and our needs of our citizens are met. And then as time goes on, once we're through and we know a little bit more about this OPP piece, you know, perhaps we reevaluate that then, and maybe that's in the next 18 to 24 months and we relook at it. But I think over the short term, we should maintain status quo. And thank you, Mayor Brown, for giving me the opportunity to weigh in.
Just, I see Councillor Sherwood has a hand up. Just one question, Councillor Taylor. Again, I'm, you know, I've told you what my thoughts were. Do you not feel that the elected members of council are able to make these determinations on behalf of the town of Orangeville? And is there a need for a police services board? I'm being totally honest. I'm just asking your opinion.
I think there's two things top of mind, and I probably could be more articulate if I thought a bit more on it, but two things top of mind would be the police should have an arm's length from council so that it's not political. We certainly have a couple of members, but those members, myself and the deputy mayor, we don't have majority vote. If the other people wanted to vote against and have something different happen, they could certainly do that. So I think politics and policing is always an interesting piece. So to have the 7 of us on a PSB council, I think would be awkward. And then the other piece with that would be is when I'm chatting with citizens about, hey, how are you enjoying council? I would suggest that I think I handle council fairly well. I mean, obviously there's spots where you fall down and do things a little bit differently, you know, but from a workload perspective, I can handle council. From a PSB standpoint, at times it tips me over the edge. And that is, it can be a lot. Now, with that said, we are going through a transition. But as an example, you know, in the prelim, I was telling everybody what I was doing yesterday. And, you know, I was in a just over 5-hour hearing on a private matter that's related to the police board. And, you know, I can't imagine that all of us would sit in on something like that. We'd have the 7 of us in a 5-hour meeting. I think that would be quite awkward. I don't know why we would do that. So I think the workload for council would be tremendous if we were to switch. And it's just not something I would recommend. And, you know, candidly, I think there's a shelf life on this board too. And I think mine probably coincides, hopefully, with the end of this council term. But, you know, it wouldn't be something I would sign up for quickly again, just based on workload. I think we need to spread it around.
Well, if I can just reiterate that what we learned, Councillor Taylor, back, it was about a year ago, I believe, you invited the chair of the Midland Police Services Board to our Police Service Board meeting. And it was very clear from his statements that once the transition happens, moving to OPP, that the workload drops dramatically. Of course, this is because the legal issues of the police service are no longer channeled through the Police Services Board. The collective bargaining agreements are no longer channeled through the Police Services Board, and so therefore so I think we're in an unusual time right now, and you're right, there's been a tremendous amount of work necessary by the Police Services Board to clean up some of those issues. But moving forward, which is what we're talking about here, the work level is much reduced. And this has also been reiterated to me by other local OPP detachment board members. Darren White, for instance, the warden of Dufferin County, said the same thing, that their work level is significantly reduced. Also,
just if I may, Your Worship, I do agree. Your comments are spot on. You know, it's the workload should be reduced tremendously. So,
and regarding provincial appointees as well, if I go back to February 2020, I went down to Toronto and was part of the roundtable discussions that members of police services boards were invited to attend. And it was very clear in that meeting that most municipalities said that they do not want provincial appointees, and that in the AMO report, which I gave to town council on Monday, reiterated that the AMO recommendation, and then again, this is the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, was to suggest that provincial appointees are no longer permitted under going forward. So, you know, again, we take that out of it. You know, again, we're elected by the people. We are the voice of the town. I think we are capable. You, me, and the rest of our council members are absolutely capable with some training. And again, what's coming forward in the new legislation is that every member of a police service board or a committee is going to have to go through training. And you know, as I do from sitting on the board, it's a lot, and there's a lot to digest and understand. The Police Act and all these other things are very complex, and it's important that whoever's on that committee. And just one more, I know, Councillor Sherwood, you got your hand up. I go, one more point. In that document that I sent to you was the fact that in Alberta, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, municipal employees and municipal councillors make up the majority, or in some cases, all of police committees. So, you know, Ontario is a little bit different. Those other provinces have adopted the idea of council being the important ones to make decisions. So I'll end that. I know everybody wants to get Councillor Sherwood, you had a question either to myself or Councillor Taylor.
I actually have more than a question. I have several items I wanted to talk about, and
let's have you go first, because you're actually the last, alphabetically, the last in the group. So why don't we reverse and let you go first and make your comments and questions. Go right ahead, Councillor.
I do have several, so I just wanted to jump on board there. You know, I respect both you and Councillor Taylor debating back and forth. But first of all, thank you, Councillor Taylor, for explaining about the Police Services Board's position and the meeting. I was concerned it was a special meeting because that's an additional cost to our taxpayers to pay an honorarium, which I thought should have been held in your regular duties. But that's okay. But the letter coming from the Police Services Board should have been addressed to council and not to the Solicitor General, because if we look at the letter from the Solicitor General, she's asking for council and chiefs. She was not, that I know of, asking for Police Services Board's opinions. So in all due respect, even though I took that letter as the Police Services Board writing to the Solicitor General how town council feels, because the Solicitor General asked the council. So your letter opening up said, thank you for your letter of March the 18th. But she, to the best of my knowledge, did not send Police Services Boards that letter. So that's my first thought, is I thought out of respect that should have come to council and asked for council to endorse your recommendation.
So you know the letter has gone to council. It has not gone to the Solicitor General.
But it's addressed to the Solicitor General, not to council. So I thought that was
seen by anybody but council.
Okay, thank you. Also, yourself and another member of the Police Services Board has given a different opinion in that letter than you did when you endorsed Mulmer. You had a joint Police Services Board meeting with Mulmer where actually one of our members put forward a motion to endorse Mono's position, which was a 3-3. It didn't have Orangeville and Shelburne separate. So I find it very odd that we've now got a different opinion when that member, McSweeney, actually put the motion to endorse Mono's. So that's my next one.
Your worship, would I answer each time, or would we?
Okay.
Well, no, let's let Councillor Sherwood, you can make some notes, Councillor Taylor, and respond accordingly. Yeah,
Right.
Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Again, I kind of like the idea. Like I feel the policing is our biggest part of our budget. We got our tax bills. It shows it's 21%. I, as an elected official, I feel that I am to be responsible for the whole town purse, and that means all of the departments. So I'm basically in line with you that I feel excluded from any police decisions. I feel like we're involved in public works and we're involved in parks and recreation, and they're such a smaller part. But with the police services board, I feel like totally excluded of that, and I thought that was going to change under OPP. So the fact that we aren't having any direct involvement as elected officials, and that being the highest part of our budget, that's why I kind of like the idea that maybe not all of council be on it, but the fact that a pinch of provincial appointees are on there, the province says you municipalities have to pay for your policing. So why, if the province has directed us to pay for the policing, why are they appointing people? They shouldn't have any say in it then. So I'm not a fan of the provincial appointees. I think the people elected us, and we're 21% of that budget. It should be us that are making those decisions. And again, I think that this council is quite capable of doing that. I would feel better knowing that I have a little bit more input and say in policing being almost 1/4 of our budget. I'm going to stop there because I think I can end up taking the whole time up here. And Councillor Taylor, I'm not being disrespectful to you, your position, and the Police Services Board. I just was slightly disappointed that it didn't come to council first, because the Solicitor General asked for council's opinions.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. So, Councillor Taylor, if you could rebut if you wish, and then we'll go on to the rest of the crew here. Go ahead.
Sure, Your Worship. Again, the letter was sent to council, and it was sent to council at the behest of the head of council, which I complied with. It hasn't been sent out anywhere else. So I take your commentary and thank you for that. There was a meeting 6 weeks ago, maybe. I'm gapping, but it was with the joint municipalities. I have not attended on balance to those. Excuse me. We're new to that realm because of the OPP transition. I know the mayor has attended one in the past, and then I think this may have been the second one that came up, and this was the first that I went to, and the VP of the Police Services Board and I attended. There was a motion that was put forth, and I must admit it's foggy. I think that, in fairness, if I recall, I think Member McSweeney seconded the motion, but just like we would do at council. But I don't recall. I can't speak to it with great certainty of what happened there. But
it's in the minutes of the meeting. If you look at the correspondence we have from the Township of Mulmer, it's in the minutes that he put forward the motion.
He did not put forward the motion. It was brought up in a meeting generally like we would, and then he was looking for someone to move it and to second it. And I think he just volunteered to do that, but it wasn't brought forth by him at that time.
The minutes reflect differently. However, it is, in my opinion, a different opinion than the letter that we've got from our Police Services Board. That's just an observation.
We're on tight timeline here, guys. I semantics, I guess, but anyway.
Yeah.
Councillor Taylor, can we move on to the next, or do you have something further to say?
No, I do not. Okay. Well, actually, if I could, Your Worship, the provincial appointees that Councillor Sherwood brought up, I don't think, I mean, no disrespect to our provincial appointees. They're both Orangeville residents and work hard and do well on the board. But I wouldn't fall on the sword for provincial appointees moving forward. I would prefer, to be honest with you, that they were municipal appointees. The provincial appointee process is, and again, no disrespect to the two members. I have great affection for them. But the provincial process, if you look at most municipal boards, they sit empty for a period of time. And the process is
for years.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
The process is questionable.
I think a municipal employee would be a great idea.
But it does not apply to the two members that we have on the board. They are, I just want to make that clear. They're working hard and doing what they're supposed to do, but I prefer the municipality appointed the members.
Just to bring that idea to a point, something I'd like us maybe to add into our letter to the Solicitor General is AMO is suggesting that provincial appointees are removed. I would like this council as a paragraph within this letter to say the same thing, that we support the municipality deciding on who's going to be on this commission or board, not the province, who has proven that they really don't care, because they don't process these things in a timely manner at all. I mean, we've had this board sit empty for 6 months before, right? And other municipalities are talking about years in some cases, that they just don't care. So if they don't care, then we care. We would make the decision, and we're quite capable, and we've seen that our staff is quite capable of advertising and reviewing resumes and making cogent, decisions and recommendations, and we're capable of making those hiring, whatever you want to call it, as far as board appointments are concerned. All right, thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Sherwood, thank you. We've got another 20 some odd minutes here. I want everybody to have a fair. So let's go to our good friend Andy McIntosh, and then maybe go back to alphabetical order with Andrews, Peters, and Post, if that's okay with you. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I think some of the, I don't want to say bad blood, but some of the issues that we've had were really evident in the past, where council had zero control on anything and the police board just run the show. And I can certainly see Councillor Sherwood's concern with that. I absolutely do. As far as all of council sitting on a board, I don't like that idea, because again, I think it could get very political. I like the idea of us being able to appoint the appointees. I don't think the government has any business being involved, really. Again, I do agree with Councillor Sherwood on some issues. As far as somatics, like, it was always going to come to council before it went anywhere. So that's about all I have.
Very good. Okay, Councillor Andrews, go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and hot topic, no doubt. And I think that whenever you have requested changes taking place, you have to be careful of what I call the blender approach, where you literally just throw everything into a blender, press the button, and figure that you're going to end up getting some results. I think that we have to be strategic with this, and I really appreciate the comments that have been made most recently by the Deputy Mayor, as well as Councillor Sherwood and even Councillor Taylor. I think that the view of autonomy is important too, because of the size of our community. There are some nuances that exist and differences that exist between Shelburne and Orangeville. There are differences that exist between Mono and Mulmer and of course, Grand Valley. So I feel that it's important we have that thumbprint on a police board that has a connection with the police services. But at the same time, I feel that the provincial appointments have really become problematic. Now, again, with some of the experiences that I've had prior to election and having the opportunity to deal with those that are with police boards, it has historically been as identified being an issue. And I feel that the idea of the opportunity of municipal appointments kind of provide us with that connection. Having 7 of us on the board may be a problem from a time perspective and political perspective, but I still feel that we have to have that pulse on what's happening with the Police Services Board. And I do appreciate the idea of including a paragraph, Your Worship, in the documentation that would be sent to the Solicitor General to address that, where as a council, we are in fact endorsing the idea of a few more municipally appointed individuals on the Police Services Board. So I think that, even looking at the information that has been shared by AMO, I agree with much of what has been identified, but there are some issues that I would be concerned about throwing everything into that blender and just, here's what comes out. We have to have that strategic approach, and I think that this is the approach that we're taking today.
Very good, sir. All right, Councillor Peters.
Thank you. There I am. Okay, perfect. I think I echo a lot of the same concepts. I'll start with the regional aspect. Orangeville is half the population of Dufferin. We're physically separated. If Shelburne were next door, and you could lump the urban groups together, then I think that would make sense. But we're certainly at different stages of our evolution in terms of the urban population and how things happen as a community here. So I think being separated from them is worthwhile, but I also recognize the time on the detachment, excuse me, to have board upon board upon board. So that'll be difficult to work out, but I do support the idea of Orangeville having a say in the policing in our own community. On the other side, I also agree that an entirely political board is perhaps going too far in terms of the type of representation and direction you could get over the course of 4 years. If politics played too major of a role. And I do like the idea in concept of sort of the provincial appointee system, but obviously it isn't working on the whole provincially, and there's other comments from reputable organizations saying that that process isn't working. But having that sort of third party or arm's length opinion, some cross representation is very important, I think, for such a major institution in our town being policing. So whatever that mix looks like, again, I think it has to be some political representatives representing the election process, whether that's staff or other citizens providing a more balanced approach, I think has yet to be worked out. But certainly the direction of a mixed board with partial political representation is where I stand on it.
Very good, sir. Thank you. All right, Councillor Post, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm most aligned with the comments from the Police Services Board about the 4 different boards within the county. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially as we complete the transition. I would like to see Orangeville have its own autonomous board at this time. And perhaps in a couple of years that may change, and the need for that may change as the policing evolves and changes in the community. As far as your comments, Mr. Mayor, about having just council on a board, I struggle with that as well, because I think that policing and keeping our community safe needs to not be political. And with the composition that it is now, and having 2 members, I think is a good number, because as Councillor Taylor said, they don't have majority vote on anything. And I worry in the past, in what we've seen in some councils, and we've seen it in other municipalities, that if the opportunity came at election time to make some strategic decisions that may make something look better than it could, I worry about how that could play out in policing. And I completely agree with your comments that we're all capable and competent of making those decisions, but I do worry about the political implications of that. And for the provincial appointees, I think I'm aligned with what everybody has said so far, that I would like to see those being municipally appointed rather than provincially appointed as well. So I would really like to see that paragraph added into our letter as well. I think that's all I got right now. Thank you.
But how do you feel about multi-million-dollar decisions being made outside of this council? I mean, that's what's happened here. And that's what my concern is we're elected to oversee the budget here, and yet there's been some serious spending happening outside of our overview of it. And I think it might have had greater scrutiny. It might have had changes. And we talked about the collective bargaining agreements that were negotiated outside of our understanding, or the last police service board and the last council's understanding. In fact, I'm told that town staff were actually ushered out of the room when some of these things happened. So that's what brought me to my letter to you, is that we're here to advocate for the town of Orangeville, and you're talking about political. Well, yeah, it's political, because that's why we're here. We want to make good decisions, good fiscal decisions for us. So anyway, but I think we're all coming to the conclusion here that we wish to have an autonomous group, and I don't know that we need to speak about the rest of Dufferin County, frankly. We're here to talk about the town of Orangeville. And I think my sense, listening to what I'm hearing right now, is we want to move forward with an autonomous board, and the composition of that board, we would like to decide who's on that board. This is what I'm hearing, I believe. So, and I think it may be a very short letter to the Solicitor General with that in it. I don't think we need to say anything more. I see Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Taylor. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Councillor Taylor, the current police service is divided into 4 zones, right? And we're one zone. So basically, are you recommending that the Police Services Board be within each of those zones? Isn't it a 4-zone area?
Yeah, I think you're right, Councillor Sherwood. I believe it is 4 zones, and we are the 4th zone. That was certainly.
We're our own zone, right?
Yeah.
And I think then or did they put Shelburne in with us under the 4th zone? Do you know, Councillor Taylor?
No, we operate simply anything to do with Orangeville. So even though there might be something outside of our zone, Mono still, which would be part of our zone, would still have, you know, their own meetings with the OPP, and they would talk about Mono issues. We would talk about Orangeville issues. That's it.
So I was just thinking, like, if we're in our own zone, then why not have a police service board for each zone? Because I thought when they presented to us, we were going to be our own exclusive zone, and maybe they put Shelburne in with zone 2 or something, right? You know what I mean? That's my thought.
So then, based on that, we would have Mono with us.
I think Mono.
No,
it was
I don't believe so, Councillor Taylor. I thought Zone 4 was Orangeville. Like
Just
when they
Orangeville.
presented to us.
Yeah. So sorry, that's what I'm saying. It's we deal with Orangeville. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
As Zone 4. That's right. You had your hand up, Councillor Taylor. You wish to say something further?
I just wanted to make 2 points, and that is, I was trying to be cautious with what I'm offering. However, I too share frustrations about financial decisions that were made previously. It really, really boils my blood. And if you had to see what I have seen, it's and have had to deal with, words don't describe how I feel.
I'm with you 100%.
I will leave it at that. However, moving forward, as we move, and I would suggest that all councillors look online. You can just Google Section 31 boards versus Section 10 boards, and you'll see essentially it was OPS board versus OPP board. That's what the Section 10 versus Section 31 is. And you'll see in there that basically in the past we as OPS board had authority and autonomy for negotiations, disciplinary action,
hiring and firing of police chiefs.
Yeah. Exactly. All these things that describe money, contracts for the police chief, how much the police chief would get paid, what a disbandment would look like, how much money we would have to give them if we disbanded.
Grievances from officers and disciplinary.
About overtime or other issues that would have financial requirements, and the Police Services Board would make those decisions. Moving forward, there's none of that. So there's a small budget. There is our budget this year, and we talked about this previously, the Police Services Board is higher this year. And why it's higher is because we are still dealing with legal issues that are left over. And all police boards have legal issues. The OPP do as well. The difference is the OPP looks after those legal issues on their own. When you're an independent board, you have to look after those issues for the town. So, you know, the OPP will still have legal issues. We just won't see them. We won't have financial things. So my point is the financial argument, although not moot, because there is money there, it's not going to be consequential for the town moving forward once we're through these things. So the financial piece really isn't part of this moving forward. In the past, without the details, we should all be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I see Deputy Mayor McIntosh wishes to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just thinking out loud here, like as a compromise. In the past, the Police Service Board would present a budget to council. The council really had no choice but to approve it. Maybe that could change, that the council has more of a say in the Police Service Board budget. That way you would have your wish that council has, you know, say on finances. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. I know in the past it was a bitter pill when the Police Services Board would just present a budget and council had no say in the past or now.
Yeah. Well, as Councillor Taylor just noted, many of the financial decisions of the overall police structure and costs are removed from us because they're not removed, but they're in the contract And
Mhm.
we're going to have opportunities going forward, as we did on Monday night, for enhancing the service, whether it's technology additions, as we did the other day, or I think when the broader traffic calming and traffic safety study comes before us, Councillor Taylor had brought forward or circulated some pictures of signs of children that were put in place in other municipalities. We've seen those at AMO and FCM, and you know, I think those are all of the things that are going to become coming to us and decision making. And there's going to be new technology as well that we're going to want to adopt in our town, and we'll be making some of those further enhancement decisions, whether it's personnel or material or technology or equipment going forward. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Deputy Mayor. I think you know, if there was something in there about you know, us having more control, but I think we're at that point right now, because really the contract with OPP is with Town Council. It's not where before it was funneled through the Police Services Board. So some of the rhetoric right now has already been resolved in the sense that we're now in a different you know, Section 10 board rather than where we were before. So
may I
anyway.
Councillor Peters and skip the queue?
Sorry?
May I skip the queue on Councillor Peters? I just really want to pick up on what you're saying, Your Worship, if I may, and just so Council understands, the mayor is spot on. The way this works now is the black cat. It came to the Police Services Board so that we could see it. The Police Services Board said this is a great idea. It goes to Council. There's money. I think we approved about $7,000 on Monday night. Council makes that decision. Police Services Board doesn't make that decision. The cutouts that Your Worship is referring to, Police Services Board would say, hey, that's a great idea. It would come to Council. Council would decide whether the money would be spent. So this money piece is largely gone away, and it's in the hands of these 7 people that we're all staring at on the screen. And I apologize, Councillor Peters. I just wanted to make the point.
Right. So we're at 12:44. We said we were going to wrap this up in about 6 or 7 minutes. So Councillor Peters, if you could have a final thought, and then maybe we can formulate what we want to say and pass it off to staff to create a letter. Councillor Peters.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, my comments were in the direction of wrapping this up, and I think your point earlier is a good one. Whatever we put in that letter, we could ask for very, very specific composition of the board, but that's not what the province is looking for. They want simple feedback. And so at this point, I agree. I think we're aligned on autonomy on the police board and the removal of provincial official or appointees and making those decisions at a municipal level. How they're made, who's assigned is neither here nor there at the moment.
I think it's that simple, really. I think the letter is that simple. And again, strictly that we wish to maintain our autonomy. We are not close to Shelburne. I don't think it makes sense to any of us. I don't even think it makes sense to the town of Shelburne. I don't believe they want to maintain their autonomy. You know, the rural municipalities surrounding us, policing in those areas is much different than it is here. And they have different things to talk about in those municipalities than we do. So it doesn't, I don't think it makes sense to bundle everything together. And as Councillor Sherwood had mentioned, there's 4 zones. Maybe that's the way it should be parceled out from OPP's perspective, that the detachment commander was going to have to go out to 4 zones. And I would suggest that Shelburne will be one of those zones and the other 2. So perhaps Dufferin County is 4 zones. That saves him 3 meetings, you know, and I think going forward, it's likely that you know, these meetings are probably going to morph. You know, right now, Councillor Taylor, the chair of the Police Services Board, there's a lot still going on, so the meetings are more. But I would guess going into 2022, likely we're going to probably only need a quarterly meeting. You know, I mean, again, it'll be up to the members of that committee to determine that. But this is where the chair of the Midland Police Services Board had told us things are going, that they quickly morphed into a much less detailed agenda, and they started meeting quarterly very shortly after the transition. So, okay, so all right, Councillor Sherwood, one more thought, and then let's try and wrap this up. Go ahead.
So I want to get back to my concern about the letter coming from the Police Services Board going to the Solicitor General. Do I have clarification then that that will not be going to the Solicitor General since they reached out to opinions from council? All of our correspondence we received in today's meeting are from councils. There is maybe one from the Joint Police Services Board, but again, not everything in that Police Services Board letter to the Solicitor General I'm in full agreement with. They don't mention about council a government appointee. So can we address that issue?
I think your point has been taken. However, Councillor Sherwood, we don't have the authority to direct the Police Services Board to do what they want to do. We don't. So I think I somewhat agree with you, but for our council to be directing the Police Service Board in that way, I don't think that's appropriate, frankly. So Councillor Taylor, you can take this discussion to heart and decide amongst your group how you wish to handle that, but go ahead.
I do not have authority to answer the question today because obviously there's 4 other people that would weigh into what I speak for the board, I don't speak for myself. So we will bring that back to the board, the deputy mayor and I, and we'll have a discussion, and majority will rule on how that letter is addressed.
Right. So I just wanted to say, Councillor Sherwood, we understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think the council has the right to direct the Police Services Board in that way. So let's try and wrap this up now. I believe what the motion and what I'm hearing from council is that we wish to exert our opinion on the autonomy, that we wish to maintain a Police Services Board and the autonomy of it in Orangeville. And we also wish to state that we feel we can make the we can make the appointments to that board. We do not need provincial appointees any further. Is that correct, Council? Is that what I'm seeing a nod here? Does again, I think this is a one-pager. It's probably 3 paragraphs. I don't think we need to get into any more depth than that, and it'll make town staff's job a lot easier if we pass this task over to them. I think what we can ask is town staff to bring that letter to our June the 7th meeting, and maybe we approve the wording. Perhaps they can send it out to us in advance, which they will in the agenda. And if there's any, quirks or changes that we need to do, but that would be my recommendation, councillors. That's my motion. Does anybody want to second that or add a comment to that? Councillor Post, seconded. Okay. Any further comments, councillors? We're good. All right. All in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. I think that was a good meeting. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for putting a hard stop there. I think it forced the issue, but we all got to say what we wanted to say. Councillor Peters, then Councillor Post. Go ahead.
I was just going to move to receive the correspondence since we didn't do it Monday.
That's what I was going to say too.
Of course. Yes. Let's get back there. I'm sorry. Okay.
Perfectionists.
Yeah. No. It's important, and I'm sure the deputy clerk weighed in shortly before we pulled that. But so we have a motion from Councillor Peters to receive correspondence 8.1 through 8.6. Councillor Post has seconded that. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Brennan has weighed in here, sir. Do you wish to speak? No? Okay. So councillors, we had a motion on the floor, myself, and seconded by, was it Post again? I believe so, on the motion. Okay, all in favor?
I think we did that.
This is the letter directing staff to write the letter regarding autonomy and removing political appointees from police service boards. All right, Madam Deputy Clerk, any questions from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just call on Mr. Bernardo to confirm.
Through you, Your Worship, there is currently nobody on the line.
Very good. Okay, I'm just on eScribe here, opening up on bylaws. I guess I see an attachment here. Are we? Okay, the confirmatory bylaw. Okay, so can we have a motion on the confirmatory bylaw for this particular meeting? Motion, please. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Is there anything anybody would like to say further before we adjourn? Motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? All right, folks. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Great day.
We'll see you next Monday. All the best. Yeah, bye-bye.